Hare Krishna. We will be reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Adi Lila, and we'll be continuing from where we left off yesterday. Hare Krishna. We will be reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Adi Lila. Text 26, text 25. 25. Chapter 5, text 25. Okay, chapter 5, Adi Lila, text 25. Only in these three places, Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula, does the all-sporting Lord Krishna perform his endless pastimes with his personal associates. In Vaikuntha, chapter text 26 translation, in the Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual sky, the Lord manifests his identity as Narayan and performs pastimes in various ways. Text 27-28 translation, Krishna's own form has only 2 hands, but in the form of Lord Narayan, he has 4 hands. Lord Narayan holds a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, and he is full of great opulence. The Shri, Bhu, and Nila energies serve at his lotus feet. Purport. In the Ramanuja and Madhava sects of Vaishnavism, there are extensive descriptions of Shri, Bhu, and Nila energies. In Bengal, the Nila energy is sometimes called the Lila energy. These 3 energies are employed in the service of 4-handed Narayan in Vaikuntha, relating how 3 of the Alavars, namely Bhuta Yogi, Sara Yogi, Bhranta Yogi, saw Narayan in person when they took shelter at the house of a Brahmana in village of Gehali. The Prapanna Amrita of Sri Sampradaya describes Narayan as follows. तर्कस्याधिरुद्रं तदिदम्बुद अहं लक्ष्मीधारं वक्षसि पङ्कजाक्षं हस्तद्वये शोभितशङ्खचक्रं विष्णुदादिर्षुर्भगवन्तम् आद्यम् अजानुबाहुं कमनीयगात्रं परस्वाद्वये शोभितभूमिनीलं पीताम्बरं भूषणभूषिताङ्गं चतुर्भुजं चन्दनरूषिताङ्गम्. They saw the lotus-eyed Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, mounted on Garuda and holding Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, to his chest. He resembled a bluish rain cloud with flashing lightning, and in 2 of his 4 hands he held a conch shell and disc. His arms stretched down to his knees, and all his beautiful limbs were smeared with sandalwood and decorated with glittering ornaments. He wore yellow clothes, and by either side stood his energies, Bhumi and Nila. There is the following reference to Shri Bhu and Nila energies in the Sitopanishad. Mahalakshmir Deve Sasya भिन्न अभिन्न रूप चेतना अचेतनात्मिका सदेवी त्रिविध भवति शक्ति आत्मन इच्छा शक्ति क्रिया शक्ति साक्षशक्तिरिति इच्छा शक्ति त्रिविध भवति त्रिभूमिनीलात्मिका Mahalakshmi, the supreme energy of the Lord, is experienced in different ways. She is divided into material and spiritual potencies, and in both features, she acts as the willing energy, creative energy, and the internal energy. The willing energy is again divided into 3, namely Shri, Bhu, and Nila. Quoting from the revealed scriptures in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Madhvacharya has stated that Mother Material Nature, which is conceived of as the illusory energy, Durga, has 3 divisions, namely Shri, Bhu, and Nila. She is the illusory energy for those who are weak in spiritual strength, because such energies are created energies of Lord Vishnu. Although each energy has no direct relationship with the unlimited, they are subordinate to the Lord because the Lord is the master of all energies. In his Bhagavad Sandarbha, text 23, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu states, the Padma Purana refers to the eternally auspicious abode of Godhead, which is full in all opulences, including the energies Shri, Bhu, and Nila. The Mahasamhita, which discusses the transcendental name and form of Godhead, also mentions Durga as the potency of the super soul in relationship with the living entities. The internal potency acts in relation with his personal affairs, and the material potency manifests the three modes. Quoting elsewhere from the revealed scriptures, he states that Shri is the energy of Godhead that maintains the cosmic manifestation. Bhu is the energy that creates the cosmic manifestation, and Neela, Durga, is the energy that destroys the creation. All these energies act in relation with the living beings, and thus they are together called Jiva Maya. Text 29, translation. Although his pastimes are his only characteristic functions, by his causeless mercy he performs one activity for the fallen souls. Text 30, translation. He delivers the fallen living entities by offering them the four kinds of liberation: Salokya, Samipya, Sarishti, and Sarupya. Purport. There are two kinds of liberated souls: those who are liberated by the favor of the Lord, and those who are liberated by their own effort. One who gets liberated by his own effort is called an impersonalist, and he merges into the glaring effulgence of the Lord, the Brahma Jyoti. But the devotees of the Lord who qualify themselves for liberation by devotional service are offered four kinds of liberation, namely Salukya, status equal to that of the Lord; Samipya, constant association with the Lord; Sarishti, opulence equal to that of the Lord; and Sarupya, features like those of the Lord. Text 31. Translation. Those who attain Brahma Sayujya liberation cannot gain entrance into Vaikuntha. Their residence is outside the Vaikuntha planets. Text 32, translation. Outside the Vaikuntha planets is the atmosphere of the glowing effulgence, which consists of the supremely bright rays of the body of Lord Krishna. Text 33, translation. That region is called Siddhaloka, and it is beyond the material nature. Its essence is spiritual, but it does not have spiritual varieties. Text 34, translation. It is like the homogeneous effulgence around the sun, but inside the sun are chariots, horses, and other opulences of the sun god. Purport. Outside of Vaikuntha, the abode of Krishna, which is called Paravyoma, is the glaring effulgence of Krishna's bodily rays. This is called Brahmajyoti. The transcendental region of that effulgence is called Siddhaloka or Brahmaloka. When impersonalists achieve liberation, they merge into that Brahmaloka effulgence. This transcendental region is undoubtedly spiritual, but it contains no manifestations of spiritual activities or variegatedness. It is compared to the glow of the sun. Within the sun's glow is the sphere of the sun, where one can experience all sorts of varieties. Text 35, translation. As through devotion to the Lord, one can attain his abode, many have attained that goal by abandoning their sinful activities and absorbing their minds in the Lord through lust, envy, fear, or affection. As the powerful sun, by its glowing rays, can purify all kinds of impurities, so the spiritual personality of Godhead can purify all material qualities in a person he attracts. Even if one is attracted by Godhead in the mode of material lust, such attraction is converted into spiritual love of Godhead by His grace. Similarly, if one is related to the Lord in fear and animosity, he also becomes purified by spiritual attraction of the Lord. Although God is great and the living entity small, there are spiritual individuals, and therefore, as soon as there is a reciprocal exchange of the living entity's free will, at once the great spiritual being attracts the small living entity, thus freeing him from all material bondage. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 7:130. Text 36, translation, where it has been stated that the Lord's enemies and devotees attain the same destination. This refers to the ultimate oneness of Brahman and Lord Krishna. This may be understood by the example of the sun and the sunshine, in which Brahman is like the sunshine and Krishna himself is like the sun. Purport. This verse is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.278 of Srila Rupa Goswami, who further discusses this same topic in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita Purva 5.41. There he refers to Vishnu Purana 4.15.1, where Maitreya Muni asked Parashara in regard to Jai and Vijay how it was that Hiranyakashipu next became Ravana and enjoyed more material happiness than the demigods, but did not attain salvation, although when he became Shishupal, quarreled with Krishna and was killed, he attained salvation and merged into the body of Lord Krishna. Parashar replied that Hiranyakashipu failed to recognize Lord Narsimhadev as Lord Vishnu. He thought that Narsimhadev was some living entity who had acquired such opulence by various pious activities. Being overcome by the mode of passion, he considered Lord Narsimhadev an ordinary living entity, not understanding his form. Nevertheless, because Hiranyakashipu was killed by the hands of Lord Narsimhadev, in his next life he became Ravana and had proprietorship of unlimited opulence. As Ravana, with unlimited material enjoyment, he could not accept Lord Rama as the personality of Godhead. Therefore, even though he was killed by Ram, he did not attain Sayuj or oneness with the body of the Lord. In his Ravana body, he was too much attracted to Ram's wife, Janaki, and because of that attraction, he was able to see Lord Ram. But instead of accepting Lord Ram as an incarnation of Vishnu, Ravana thought him as an ordinary living being. When killed by the hands of Rama, therefore, he got the privilege of taking birth as Shishupal, who had such immense opulence that he could think himself a competitor to Krishna. Although Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, he frequently uttered the name of Krishna and always thought of beautiful features of Krishna. Thus, by constantly thinking and chanting of Krishna, ever, even unfavorably, he was cleansed of contamination of his sinful activities. When Shishupal was killed by Sudarshana Chakra of Krishna as an enemy, his constant remembrance of Krishna dissolved the reactions of his vices and he attained salvation by becoming one with the body of the Lord. From this incident, one can understand that even a person who thinks of Krishna as an enemy and is killed by him may be liberated by becoming one with the body of Krishna. What then must be the destination of devotees who always think favorably of Krishna as their master or friend? These devotees must attain a situation better than Brahmaloka, the impersonal bodily effulgence of Krishna. Devotees cannot be situated in the impersonal Brahman effulgence into which the impersonalists desire to merge. The devotees are placed in Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka. This discussion between Maitreya Muni and Parashar Muni centered on whether devotees come down into the material world in every millennium, like Jay and Vijay, who were cursed by the Kumaras to that effect. In the course of these instructions to Maitreya about Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, and Shishupala, Parashar did not say that these demons were formerly Jay and Vijay. He simply described the transmigration through three lives. It is not necessary for the Vaikuntha associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come to take the roles of his enemies in all the millenniums in which he appears. The fall down of Jay and Vijay occurred in a particular millennium. Jay and Vijay did not come down in every millennium to act as demons. To think that some associates of the Lord fall down from Vaikuntha in every millennium to become demons is totally incorrect. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has all the tendencies that may be found in the living entity, for he is the chief living entity. Therefore, it is natural that sometimes Lord Vishnu wants to fight. Just as he has the tendencies to create, to enjoy, to be a friend, to accept a mother and father, and so on. He also has the tendency to fight. Sometimes important landlords and kings keep wrestlers with whom they practice mock fighting, and Vishnu makes similar arrangements. The demons who fight with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the material world are sometimes his associates. When there is scarcity of demons and the Lord wants to fight, he instigates some of his associates of Vaikuntha to come and play as demons. When it is said that Shishupal merged into the body of Krishna, it should be noted that in this case, he was not Jay or Vijay. He was actually a demon. In his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Srila Sanatan Goswami has explained that the attainment of salvation by merging into Brahman effulgence of the Lord cannot be accepted as the highest success in life. Because demons like Kamsa, who were famous for killing Brahmanas and cows, attained that salvation. For devotees, such salvation is abominable. Devotees are actually in a transcendental position, whereas non devotees are candidates for hellish conditions of life. There is always a difference between the life of a devotee and the life of a demon, and their realizations are as different as heaven and hell. Demons are always accustomed to being malicious towards devotees and to killing brahmanas and cows. For demons, merging into the Brahman effulgence may be very glorious, but for devotees, it is hellish. A devotee's aim in life is to attain perfection in loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who aspire to merge into Brahman effulgence are as abominable as demons. Devotees who aspire to associate with the Supreme Lord to render him transcendental loving service are far superior. Text 37. Thus, in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of pastimes within the spiritual energy. Outside the Vaikuntha planets appears the impersonal reflection of light. Text 38. That impersonal Brahman effulgence consists only of effulgent rays of the Lord. Those fit for Sayujya liberation merge into that effulgence. Text 39, translation. Beyond the region of ignorance, the material cosmic manifestation, lies the realm of Siddhaloka. The Siddhas reside there, absorbed in the bliss of Brahman. Demons killed by the Lord also attain that realm. Purport. Tamas means darkness. The material world is dark, and beyond the material world is light. In other words, after passing through the entire material atmosphere, one can come to the luminous spiritual sky, whose impersonal effulgence is known as Siddhaloka. Mayavadi philosophers who aspire to merge with the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as demoniac persons who are killed by Krishna, such as Kamsa and Shishupal, enter the Brahman effulgence. Yogis who attain oneness through meditation according to the Patanjali Yoga system also reach Siddhaloka. This is a verse from Brahmanda Purana. Text 40, translation. In that spiritual sky, on the four sides of Narayan, are the second expansions of the quadruple expansions of Dwarka. Purport. Within the spiritual sky is a second manifestation of the quadruple forms of Dwarka from the abode of Krishna. Among these forms, which are all spiritual and immune to the material modes, Sri Baladev is represented as Mahasankarshan. The activities in the spiritual sky are manifested by the internal potency in pure spiritual existence. They expand in six transcendental opulences, which are all manifestations of Mahasankarshan, who is the ultimate reservoir and objective of all living entities. Although belonging to the marginal potency known as Jiva Shakti, the spiritual sparks known as the living entities are subjected to the conditions of material energy. It is because these sparks are related with both the internal and external potencies of the Lord that they are known as belonging to the marginal potency. In considering the quadruple forms of the absolute personality of Godhead, known as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, the impersonalists headed by Sripad Shankaracharya have interpreted the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra in a way suitable for impersonalist school. To provide the intrinsic import of such aphorisms, however, Srila Rupa Goswami, the leader of 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, has properly replied to the impersonalists in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, which is natural commentary on the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra. The Padma Purana, as quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, describes that in the spiritual sky there are 4 directions, corresponding to east, west, north, and south, in which Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna are situated. The same forms are also situated in the material sky. The Padma Purana also describes a place in the spiritual sky known as Vedavati Pura, where Vasudeva resides. In Vishnaloka, which is above Satyaloka, Sankarshana resides. Mahasankarshan is another name of Sankarshan. Pradyumna lives in Dwarkapura, and Aniruddha lies on the eternal bed of Shesha, generally known as Ananta Shaya, on the island called Shvetadvipa in the ocean of milk. Text 41, translation. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha constitute this second quadruple. They are purely transcendental, purport. Sripad Shankaracharya has misleadingly explained the quadruple form Chaturvyuha in his interpretation of the 42nd aphorism of chapter 2 of the second khanda of the Vedanta Sutra, Utpatti Asambhavat. In verses 41 through 47 of this chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami answers Sripad Shankaracharya's misleading objections to the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is not like a material object that can be known by the experimental knowledge or sense perception. In the Narada Pancharatra, this fact has been explained by Narayan himself to Lord Shiva. But Shankaracharya, the incarnation of Shiva under the order of Narayan, his master, had to mislead the monists who favor ultimate extinction. In the conditioned stage of existence, all living entities have 4 basic defects, of which one is the cheating propensity. Shankaracharya has carried this cheating propensity to the extreme to mislead the monists. Actually, the explanation of the quadruple forms in the Vedic literature cannot be understood by speculation of a conditioned soul. The quadruple forms should therefore be accepted just as they are described. The authority of the Vedas is such that even if one does not understand something by his limited perception, he should accept the Vedic injunction and should not create interpretations to suit his imperfect understanding. In his Shariraka Bhasya, however, Shankaracharya has increased the misunderstanding of the monists. The quadruple forms have a spiritual existence that can be realized in Vasudev Sattva, Shuddha Sattva, or unqualified goodness, which accompanies complete absorption in the understanding of Vasudeva. The quadruple forms, who are full in 6 opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are the enjoyers of the internal potency. Thinking the absolute personality of Godhead to be poverty stricken or to have no potency, or in other words, to be impotent, is simply rascaldom. This rascaldom is the profession of conditioned soul, and it increases his bewilderment. One who cannot understand the distinctions between the spiritual world and the material world has no qualification to examine or to know the situation of the transcendental quadruple forms. In his commentary on Vedanta Sutra 2.2.42 to 45, His Holiness Sripad Shankaracharya has made a futile attempt to nullify the existence of these quadruple forms in the spiritual world. Shankaracharya says, Sutra 42, that devotees think the spiritual personality of Godhead, Vasudev, Sri Krishna, to be one, to be free from material qualities, and to have a transcendental body full of bliss and eternal existence. He is the ultimate goal of the devotees, who believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself into four other eternal transcendental forms: Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. From Vasudev, who is the primary expansion, comes Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha in that order. Another name of Vasudev is Paramatma. Another name of Sankarshana is Jiva, the living entity. Another name of Pradyumna is the mind. And another name of Aniruddha is Ahankar, false ego. Among these expansions, Vasudev is considered the origin of material nature. Therefore, Shankaracharya says that Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha must be creations of that original cause. Great souls assert that Narayan, who is known as Paramatma or Super Soul, is beyond material nature, and this is in accordance with the statements of Vedic literature. Mayavadis also agree that Narayan can expand himself in various forms. Shankara says that he does not attempt to argue that portion of the devotee's understanding, but he must protest the idea that Shankara is produced from Vasudev, Sankarshana is produced from Vasudev, Pradyumna is produced from Sankarshana, and Aniruddha is produced from Pradyumna. For if Sankarshana is understood to be represent the living entities created from the body of Vasudev, the living entities would have to be non eternal. The living entities are supposed to be free from material contamination by engaging in prolonged temple worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, reading Vedic literature, and performing yoga and pious activities to attain the Supreme Lord. But if the living entities had been created from the material nature at a certain point, they would be non eternal and would have no chance to be liberated and associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When a cause is nullified, its results are nullified. In the second chapter of Vedanta Sutra, second Khanda, Acharya Vedavyas has also refuted the conception that the living beings were ever born. Na atma shruter nitya atvach cha tabhya. Because there is no creation for the living entities, they must be eternal. Shankaracharya says, Sutra 43, that devotees think that Pradyumna, who is considered to represent the senses, has sprung from Sankarshana, who is considered to represent the living entities. But we cannot actually experience that a person can produce senses. Devotees also say that from Pradyumna has sprung Aniruddha, who is considered to represent the ego. But Shankaracharya says that unless the devotees can show how ego and the means of knowledge can generate from a person, such an expansion of the Vedanta Sutra cannot be accepted. For no other philosophers accept the sutras in that way. Sankaracharya also says, Sutra 44, that he cannot accept the devotee's idea that Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are equally as powerful as the absolute personality of Godhead, full in six opulences of knowledge, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation, and free from the flaw of generation at a certain point. Even if they are full expansions, the flaw of generation remains. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, being distinct individual persons, cannot be one. Therefore, if they are accepted as absolute, full, and equal, there would have to be many personalities of Godhead. But there is no need to accept that there are many personalities of Godhead because acceptance of one omnipotent God is sufficient for all purposes. The acceptance of more than one God is contradictory to the conclusion that Lord Vasudev, the absolute personality of Godhead, is one without a second. Even if we agree to accept that the quadruple forms of Godhead are all identical, we cannot avoid the incongruous flaw of non eternity unless we accept that there are some differences among the personalities. There is no meaning to the idea that Shankarshan is an expansion of Vasudev and Pradyumna is an expansion of Sankarshana and Aniruddha is an expansion of Pradyumna. There must be a distinction between cause and effect. For example, a pot is distinct from the earth from which it is made, and therefore we can ascertain that that the earth is the cause and the pot is the effect. Without such distinctions, there is no meaning to cause and effect. Furthermore, the followers of Pancharatric principles do not accept any differences in knowledge and qualities between Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The devotees accept all these expansions to be one, but why should they restrict oneness to these quadruple expansions? Certainly, we should not do so. For all living entities, from Brahma to the insignificant ant, are the expansions of Vasudev as accepted in all Shrutis and Smritis. Shankaracharya also says, Sutra 45, that the devotees who follow the Pancharatra state that God's qualities and God Himself, as the owner of the qualities, are the same. But how can the Bhagavata school state that the six opulences, wisdom, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation, are identical with Lord Vasudev? This is impossible. In his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Purva 5.165 to 193, Srila Rupa Goswami has refuted the charges directed against the devotees by Sri Pad Shankaracharya regarding their expansion of the quadruple forms Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Rupa Goswami says that these four expansions of Narayan are present in the spiritual sky, where they are famous as Maha Avastha. Among them, Vasudev is worshipped within the heart by meditation, because he is the predominating deity of the heart, as explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23. Sankarshan, the second expansion, is Vasudev's personal expansion for pastimes. And since he is the reservoir of all living entities, he is sometimes called Jiva. The beauty of Sankarshana is greater than that of innumerable full moons, radiating light beams. He is worshipable as the principle of ego. He has invested Anantadeva with all the potencies of sustenance. For the dissolution of the creation, he also exhibits himself as the supersoul in Rudra, in Adharma, the personality of irreligion, in Sarpa, snakes, in Antaka, Yamraj, the lord of death, and in the demons. Pradyumna, the third manifestation, appears from Sankarshana. Those who are especially intelligent worship this Pradyumna expansion of Sankarshana as the principle of intelligence. The goddess of fortune always chants the glories of Pradyumna in the place known as Ilavartavarsha, and she also serves him with great devotion. His complexion appears sometimes golden and sometimes bluish, like new monsoon clouds in the sky. He is the origin of the creation of the material world, and he has invested his creative principle in Cupid. It is by his direction only that all men and demigods and other living entities function with the energy for regeneration. Aniruddha, the fourth god of the quadruple expansions, is worshipped by great sages and psychologists as the principle of the mind. His complexion is similar to the bluish hue of a blue cloud. He engages in the maintenance of the cosmic manifestation and is the super soul of Dharma, the deity of religiosity, the Manus, progenitors of mankind, and the Devatas, demigods. The Moksha Dharma, Vedic scripture, indicates that Pradyumna is the deity of the total mind, whereas Aniruddha is the deity of the total ego. But previous statements regarding the quadruple forms are confirmed in Pancharatra Tantras in all respects. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Purva 5.86 to 100, there is a lucid explanation of the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Negating Shankaracharya's statements, the Mahavaraha Purana declares सर्वे नित्यशाश्वतश्च देहस्तस्य परा आत्मना हन हनोपादनराहिता नैव प्रकृति ज क्वचित्. All the varied expansions of the personality of Godhead are transcendental and eternal, and all of them repeatedly descend to all the different universes of the material creation. Their bodies, composed of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, are everlasting. There is no chance of their decaying, for they are not creations of the material world. Their forms are concentrated spiritual existence, always complete with all spiritual qualities and devoid of material contamination. Confirming these statements, the Narad Pancharatra asserts मनेर्यथा विभागेन नीलपीतादिभिर्युत रूपभेदम् अवाप्नोति ध्यानभेदत् तथाच्युतः. The infallible personality of Godhead can manifest his body in different ways according to different modes of worship. Just as the Vaidurya gem can manifest itself in various colors, such as blue and yellow, each incarnation is distinct from all others. This is possible by the Lord's inconceivable potency, by which he can simultaneously represent himself as one, as various partial forms, and as the origin of these partial forms. Nothing is impossible for his inconceivable potencies. Krishna is one without a second, but he manifests himself in different bodies, as stated by Narada in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chitram battaitad ekena vapusha yugapat prithak. Griheshu dvi asta sahasram striya eka udavahat. It is wonderful indeed that one Krishna has simultaneously become different Krishnas in 16,000 places to accept 16,000 queens as his wives. The Padma Purana also explains Sadevo Bahudha Bhutva Nirguna Purushottamaha Eki Bhuya Puna Sete Nirdosho Harir Adikrit. The same personality of Godhead, Purushottama, the original person, who is always devoid of material qualities and contamination, can exhibit himself in various forms and at the same time lie down in one form. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Yajanti tvan mayas tvam vai bahu murti eka murtikam. O my Lord, although you manifest yourself in varieties of forms, you are one without a second. Therefore, pure devotees concentrate upon you and worship only you. In the Kurma Purana, it is said, Astulas cha ananuschaiva, stulo anuschaiva sarvataha, avarna sarvataha proktaha, shamo raktantalochana. The Lord is personal, although impersonal. He is atomic, although great. And he is blackish and has red eyes, although he is colorless. By material calculation, all this may appear contradictory. But if we understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has inconceivable potencies, we can accept these facts as eternally possible in him. In our present condition, we cannot understand the spiritual activities and how they occur. But although they are inconceivable in the material context, we should not disregard such contradictory conceptions. Although it is apparently inconceivable, it is quite possible for the Absolute to reconcile all opposing elements. Srimad Bhagavatam establishes this in the 6th canto, 6.9.34 to 37. O my Lord, your transcendental pastimes and enjoyments all appear inconceivable because they are not limited by casual and effective actions of material thought. You can do everything without performing bodily work. The Vedas say that the absolute truth has multifarious potencies and does not need to do anything personally. My dear Lord, you are entirely devoid of material qualities. Without anyone's help, you can create, maintain, and dissolve the entire qualitative material manifestation. Yet, in all such activities, you do not change. You do not accept the results of your activities, unlike ordinary demons and demigods who suffer or enjoy the reactions of their activities. In the material world, unaffected by the reactions of work, you eternally exist with your full spiritual potency. This we cannot fully understand. Because you are unlimited in your six opulences, no one can count your transcendental qualities. Philosophers and other thoughtful persons are overwhelmed by the contradictory manifestations of the physical world and the propositions of logical arguments and judgments. Because they are bewildered by word jugglery and disturbed by the different calculations of the scriptures, their theories cannot touch you, who are the ruler and the controller of everyone, and whose glories are beyond conception. Your inconceivable potency keeps you unattached to the mundane qualities, surpassing all conceptions of material contemplation. Your pure transcendental knowledge keeps you beyond all speculative processes. By your inconceivable potency, there is nothing contradictory in you. People may sometimes think of you as impersonal or personal, but you are one. For persons who are confused or bewildered, a rope may appear to manifest itself as different kinds of snakes. For similar confused persons who are uncertain about you, you create various philosophical methods in pursuance of their uncertain positions. We should always remember the differences between spiritual and material actions. The Supreme Lord, being all spiritual, can perform any act without extraneous help. In the material world, if we want to manufacture an earthen pot, we need the ingredients, a machine, and also a laborer. But we should not extend this idea to the actions of the Supreme Lord, for he can create anything in a moment without that which appears necessary in our own conception. When the Lord appears as an incarnation to fulfill a particular purpose, this does not indicate that he is unable to fulfill it without appearing. He can do anything simply by his will, but by his causeless mercy, he appears to be dependent upon his devotees. He appears as the son of Yashoda Mata, not because he is dependent on her care, but because he accepts such a role by his causeless mercy. When he appears for the protection of his devotees, he naturally accepts trials and tribulations on their behalf. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord, being equally disposed towards every living being, has no enemies and no friends, but that he has special affection for a devotee who always thinks of him in love. Therefore, neutrality and partiality are both among the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and they are properly adjusted by his inconceivable energy. The Lord is Parabrahman, or the source of the impersonal Brahma, which is his all pervading feature of neutrality. In his personal feature, however, as the owner of all transcendental opulences, the Lord displays his partiality by taking the side of his devotees. Partiality, neutrality, and all such qualities are present in God. Otherwise, they would not be experienced in the creation. Since He is the total existence, all things are properly adjusted in the absolute. In the relative world, such qualities are displayed in a perverted manner, and therefore we experience non duality as a perverted reflection. Because there is no logic to explain how things happen in the realm of spirit, the Lord is sometimes described as being beyond the range of experience. But if we simply accept the Lord's inconceivability, we can then adjust all things in Him. Non devotees cannot understand the Lord's inconceivable energy, and consequently, for them, it is said that He is beyond the range of inconceivable expression. The author of Brahma Sutras accepts this fact and says, Shrutestu Sabda Mulat Tattvat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being inconceivable to an ordinary man, can be understood only through the evidence of Vedic injunctions. The Skanda Purana confirms Achintya khalu ye bhava na tam tarkena yojayet. Matters inconceivable to a common man should not be subject for argument. We find very wonderful qualities even in such material things as jewels and drugs. Indeed, their qualities often appear inconceivable. Therefore, if we do not attribute inconceivable potencies to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we cannot establish His supremacy. It is because of these inconceivable potencies that the glories of the Lord have always been accepted as difficult to understand. Ignorance and jugglery of words are very common in human society, but they do not help one understand the inconceivable energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we accept such ignorance and word jugglery, we cannot accept the Supreme Lord's perfection in six opulences. For example, one of the opulences of the Supreme Lord is complete knowledge. Therefore, how could ignorance be inconceivable in him? Vedic instructions and sensible arguments establish that the Lord's maintaining the cosmic manifestation and simultaneously being indifferent to the activities of its maintenance cannot be contradictory because of his inconceivable energies. To a person who is always absorbed in the thoughts of snakes, a rope always appears to be a snake. And similarly, to a person bewildered by material qualities and devoid of knowledge of the Absolute, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears according to the diverse bewildered conclusions. Someone might argue that the Absolute would be affected by duality if he were both all cognizance, Brahman, and the personality of Godhead with six opulences in full Bhagwan. To refute such an argument, the aphorism Swarupa Dvayam Ikshate declares that in spite of appearances, there is no chance of duality in the Absolute, for he is but one in diverse manifestations. Understanding that the Absolute displays varied pastimes by the influence of his energies at once removes the apparent incongruity of his inconceivably opposite energies. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.4.16 gives the following description of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Karmani anihasya bhavayasyate Durga ashrayo athari bhayat palayanam kalatmano yat pramad yuta ashraya swat atman rate khi dyati dhir vidam iha. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do, he nevertheless acts. Although he is unborn, he nevertheless takes birth. Although he is time, fearful to everyone, he flees Mathura in fear of his enemy to take shelter in a fort. And although he is self sufficient, he marries 16,000 women. These pastimes seem like bewildering contradictions, even to the most intelligent. He had Had these activities of the Lord not been a reality, sages would not have been puzzled by them. Therefore, such activities should never be considered imaginary. Whenever the Lord desires, his inconceivable energy, Yogamaya, serves him in creating and performing such pastimes. The scriptures known as Pancharatra Shastras are recognized Vedic scriptures that have been accepted by the great acharyas. These scriptures are not products of the modes of passion and ignorance. Learned scholars and brahmanas therefore always refer to them as Sattvata Samhitas. The original speaker of these scriptures is Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is especially mentioned in the Moksha Dharma 349.68, which is a part of the Shanti Parva of Mahabharata. Liberated sages like Narada and Vyasa, who are free from the four defects of conditioned souls, are propagators of these scriptures. Sri Narad Muni is the original speaker of Pancharatra Shastra. Srimad Bhagavatam is also considered a Sattvata Samhita. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless Purana. Malicious editors and scholars who attempt to misrepresent the Pancharatra Shastras to refute their regulations are most abominable. In the modern age, such malicious scholars have been commented misleadingly upon the Bhagavad Gita, have even commented misleadingly upon the Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Krishna to prove that there is no Krishna. How the Mayavadis have misrepresented the Pancharatrika Vidhi will be shown below. 1. In commenting on Vedanta Sutra 2.2.42, Sripad Shankaracharya has claimed that Sankarshana is a jiva, an ordinary living entity. But there is no evidence in any Vedic scripture that devotees of the Lord have ever said that Sankarshana is an ordinary living entity. He is an infallible plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Vishnu category, and he is beyond the creation of the material nature. He is the original source of the living entities. The Upanishads declare Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. He is the supreme living entity among all living entities. Therefore, he is Vibhu Chaitanya, the greatest. He is directly the cause of the cosmic manifestation and the infinitesimal living beings. He is the infinite living entity, and ordinary living entities are infinitesimal. Therefore, he is never to be considered an ordinary living being, for that would be against the conclusion of the authorized scriptures. The living entities are also beyond the limitations of birth and death. This is the version of the Vedas, and it is accepted by those who follow scriptural injunctions and who have actually descended in the disciplic succession. 2. In answer to Shankaracharya's commentary on Vedanta Sutra 2.2.43, it must be said that the original Vishnu of all Vishnu categories, which are distributed in several ways, is Mula Shankarshan. Mula means the original. Sankarshana is also Vishnu. But from him, all other Vishnus expand. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.46, wherein it is said that just as a flame transferred from another flame acts like the original, so the Vishnus who emanate from Mula Sankarshan are as good as the original Vishnu. One should worship that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who thus expands himself. In reply to the commentary of Shankaracharya on the 44th aphorism, it may be said that no pure devotees strictly following the principles of Pancharatra will ever accept the statement that all the expansions of Vishnu are different identities. For this idea is completely false. Even Sripad Shankaracharya, in his commentary on the 42nd aphorism, has accepted that the personality of Godhead can automatically expand himself variously. Therefore, his commentary on the 42nd aphorism and his commentary on the 44th aphorism are contradictory. It is a defect of Mayavad commentaries that they make one statement in one place and a contradictory statement in another place as a tactic to refute the Bhagavata school. Thus, Mayavadi commentators do not even follow regulative principles. It should be noted that Bhagavata school accepts the quadruple forms of Narayan, but that does not mean that it accepts many gods. Devotees know perfectly well that the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, is one without a second. They are never pantheists, worshippers of many gods, for this is against the injunction of the Vedas. Devotees completely believe with strong faith that Narayan is transcendental and has inconceivable proprietorship of various transcendental potencies. We therefore recommend that scholars consult the Laghu Bhagavatamrita of Srila Rupa Goswami, where these ideas are explicitly stated. Sripad Shankaracharya has tried to prove that Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha expand through cause and effect. He has compared them with earth and earthen pots. That is completely ignorant. However, for there is no such thing as cause and effect in their expansions. Na anyat yat sad asat param. The Kurma Purana also confirms Deha Dehi Vibhedo Ayam Neshware Vidyate Kvachit. There is no difference between body and soul in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cause and effect are material. For example, it is seen that a father's body is the cause of a son's body, but the soul is neither cause nor effect. On the spiritual platform, there are none of these differences we find in cause and effect. Since all the forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are spiritually supreme, they are equally controllers of material nature, standing on the fourth dimension. They are predominating figures on transcendental platform. There is no trace of material contamination in their expansions because material laws cannot influence them. There is no such rule as cause and effect outside of the material world. Therefore, the understanding of cause and effect cannot approach the full, transcendental, complete expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic literature proves this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 5.1. It is most apparent that non devotees violate the rules and regulations of devotional service to equate the whole cosmic manifestation, which is the eternal feature of Vishnu, external feature of Vishnu, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of Maya, or with his quadruple expansions. Equating Maya with spirit or Maya with the Lord is a sign of atheism. The cosmic creation which manifests life in forms from Brahma to the ant is the external feature of the Supreme Lord. It comprises one fourth of the Lord's energy, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Ekam Shena Stito Jagat. The cosmic manifestation of the illusory energy is material nature, and everything within material nature is made of matter. Therefore, one should not try to compare the expansions of material nature to the Chaturvyuha, the quadruple expansions of the personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, the Mayavad school unreasonably attempts to do so. To answer Shankaracharya's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra 2.2.45, the substance of transcendental qualities and their spiritual nature is described in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita as follows. Some say that transcendence must be void of all qualities because qualities are manifested only in matter. According to them, all qualities are like temporary flickering mirages. But this is not acceptable. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute, his qualities are non different from him. His form, name, qualities, and everything else pertaining to him are as spiritual as he is. Every qualitative expansion of the absolute personality of Godhead is identical with him. Since the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all pleasure, all transcendental qualities that expand from him are also reservoirs of pleasure. This is confirmed in the scripture known as Brahmatarka, which states that the Supreme Lord Hari is qualified by himself and therefore Vishnu and his pure devotees and their transcendental qualities cannot be different from their persons. In the Vishnu Purana, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in the following words: Let the Supreme Personality of Godhead be merciful towards us. His existence is never infected by material qualities. In the same Vishnu Purana, it is also said that all the qualities attributed to the Supreme Lord, such as knowledge, opulence, beauty, strength, and influence, are known to be non different from him. This is also confirmed in the Padma Purana, which explains that whenever the Supreme Lord is described as having no qualities, this should be understood to indicate that he is devoid of material qualities. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1.16.29, it is said, O Dharma, protector of religious principles, all noble and sublime qualities are eternally manifested in the person of Krishna, and devotees and transcendentalists who aspire to become faithful also desire to possess such transcendental qualities. It is therefore to be understood that Lord Sri Krishna, the transcendental form of the absolute bliss, is the fountainhead of all pleasurable transcendental qualities and the inconceivable potencies. In this connection, we may recommend references to Srimad Bhagavatam, the third canto, chapter 26, verses 21, 25, 27, and 28. Sripad Ramanujacharya has also refuted the arguments of Shankara in his own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. which is known as Sri Bhasya. Sripad Shankaracharya has tried to equate the Pancharatras with philosophy of the atheist Kapila, and thus he has tried to prove that the Pancharatras contradict the Vedic injunctions. The Pancharatras state that a personality of Jiva called Sankarshan has emerged from Vasudeva, the supreme cause of all causes. That Pradyumna, the mind, has come from Sankarshan, and that Aniruddha, the ego, has come from Pradyumna. But one cannot say that the living entity, Jiva, takes birth or is created, for such a statement is against the injunction of the Vedas. As stated in the Katha Upanishad 2.18, the living entities as individual spirit souls can have neither birth nor death. All Vedic literatures declares that the living entities are eternal. Therefore, when it is said that Shankarshana is Jiva, this indicates that he is the predominating deity of the living entities. Similarly, Pradyumna is the predominating deity of mind, and Aniruddha is the predominating deity of the ego. It has been said that Pradyumna, the mind, was produced from Sankarshan. But if Sankarshan were a living entity, this would not be accepted because a living entity cannot be the cause of the mind. The Vedic injunctions state that everything, including life, mind, and the senses, comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is impossible for the mind to be produced by a living entity, for the Vedas state that, that everything comes from the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord. Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha have all the potent features of the absolute personality of Godhead, according to the revealed scriptures, which contain undeniable facts that no one can refute. Therefore, these members of the quadruple manifestation are never to be considered ordinary living beings. Each of them is a plenary expansion of the absolute Godhead, and thus each is identical with the Supreme Lord in knowledge, opulence, energy, influence, prowess, and potencies. The evidence of the Pancharatras cannot be neglected. Only untrained persons who have not genuinely studied the Pancharatras think that the Pancharatras contradict the Shrutis regarding the birth or the beginning of the living entity. In this connection, we must accept the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says the absolute personality of Godhead, who is known as Vasudev and who is very affectionate towards his surrendered devotees, expands himself in the quadruple forms who are subordinate to him and at the same time identical with him in all respects. The Paushkara Samhita states the scriptures that recommend that Brahmanas worship the quadruple forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called agamas, authorized Vedic literatures. In all Vaishnava literature, it is said that worshipping these quadruple forms is as good as worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, who is his different expansions, complete in six opulences, can accept offerings from his devotees of the results of their prescribed duties. Worshipping the expansions for pastimes such as Narsimha, Rama, Shesha, and Kurma promotes one to the worship of Sankarshan quadruple. From that position, one is raised to the platform of worshipping Vasudeva, the supreme Brahman. In the Paushkar Samhita, it is said If one fully worships according to the regulative principles, one can attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. It is to be accepted that Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are as good as Lord Vasudeva, for they have inconceivable power and can accept transcendental forms like Vasudeva. Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are never born, but they can manifest themselves in various incarnations before the eyes of pure devotees. This is the conclusion of all Vedic literature, that the Lord can manifest himself before his devotees by his inconceivable power is not against the teachings of Pancharatras. Since Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are respectively the predominating deities of all living entities, the total mind and the total ego, the designation of Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha as Jiva, mind, and ego is never contradictory to the statements of the scriptures. These terms identify these deities just as the terms sky and light sometimes identify the absolute Brahman. The scriptures completely deny the birth or production of the living entity. In the Parama Samhita, it is described that material nature, which is used for other purposes, is factually inert and always subject to transformation. The field of material nature is the arena of the activities of fruitive actors, and since the material field is externally related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is also eternal. In every Samhita, the Jiva, living entity, has been accepted as eternal, and in the Pancharatras, the birth of the Jiva is completely denied. Anything that is produced must also be annihilated. Therefore, if we accept the birth of the living entity, we also have to accept his annihilation. But since the Vedic literatures say that the living entity is eternal, one should not think the living being to be produced at a certain time. In the beginning of the Paramasamhita, it is definitely stated that the face of material nature is constantly changeable. Therefore, beginning, annihilation, and all such terms are applicable only in the material nature. Considering all these points, one should understand that Shankaracharya's statement that Sankarshana is born as a jiva is completely against the Vedic statements. His assertions are completely refuted by the above arguments. In this connection, the commentary of Sripad Swami on Srimad Bhagavatam 3.1.34 is very helpful. For a detailed refutation of Shankaracharya's arguments, attempting to prove Sankarshan an ordinary living being, one may refer to Srimad Sudarshana Acharya's commentary on the Sri Bhasya, which is known as Shruta Prakashika. The original quadruple forms, Krishna, Baladev, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, expand into another quadruple, which is present in Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual sky. Therefore, the quadruple forms in the spiritual sky are the second manifestation of the original quadruple in Dwarka. As explained above, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are all changeless, transcendental plenary expansions of the Supreme Lord who have no relation to the material modes. The Sankarshana form is the second quadruple. In the second quadruple is not only a representation of Balaram but also the original cause of the causal ocean. where Karnodakshay Vishnu lies asleep, breathing out the seeds of innumerable universes. In the spiritual sky, there is a spiritual creative energy, technically called Shuddha Sattva, which is a pure spiritual energy that sustains all the Vaikuntha planets with full opulences of knowledge, wealth, prowess, etc. All these actions of Shuddha Sattva display the potencies of Mahashankarshan, who is the ultimate reservoir of all individual living entities who are suffering in the material world. When the cosmic creation is annihilated, the living entities who are indestructible by nature rest in the body of Mahasankarshana. Sankarshana is therefore sometimes called the total jiva. As the spiritual sparks, the living entities have the tendency to be inactive in the association of material energy, just as the sparks of a fire have the tendency to be extinguished as soon as they leave the fire. The spiritual nature of the living being can be rekindled. However, in association with the Supreme Being, because the living being can appear either in matter or in spirit, the jiva is called the marginal potency. Sankarshan is the origin of Karana Vishnu, who is the original form who creates the universes, and that Sankarshana is but a plenary expansion of Sri Nityananda Ram. Text 42, translation. There in the spiritual sky, the personal feature of Balram, called Mahasankarshan, is the shelter of the spiritual energy. He is the prime cause, the cause of all causes. Text 43, translation. One variety of pastimes of the spiritual energy is described as pure goodness, Vishuddha Sattva. It comprises all the abodes of the Vaikuntha. Text 44, translation. The six attributes are all spiritual. Know for certain that they are all manifestations of the opulence of Sankarsana. Text 45, translation. There is one marginal potency known as the Jiva. Mahasankarshan is the shelter of all Jivas. Text 46. Sankarshan is the original shelter of the Purusha, from whom this world is created and in whom it is dissolved. Text 47, translation. He, Sankarshana, is the shelter of everything. He is wonderful in every respect, and his opulences are infinite. Even Ananta cannot describe his glory. Text 48, translation. That Sankarshana, who is transcendental, pure goodness, is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balarama. Text 49, translation. I have briefly explained the eighth verse. Now please listen with attention as I explain the ninth verse. Text 50, translation. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose partial representation called Karanodakshai Vishnu, lying on the Karna ocean, is the original Purusha, the master of the illusory energy and the shelter of all universes. Text 51. Outside the Vaikuntha planets is the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and beyond that effulgence is the Karana ocean or causal ocean. Purport. The impersonal glowing effulgence, known as impersonal Brahman, is the outer space of Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. Beyond that impersonal Brahman is the great causal ocean, which lies between the material and spiritual skies. The material nature is a byproduct of this causal ocean. Karunadakshai Vishnu, who lies on the causal ocean, creates the universes merely by glancing upon material nature. Therefore, Krishna personally has nothing to do with the material creation. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that the Lord glances over the material nature and thus she produces the many material universes. Neither Krishna in Goloka nor Narayan in Vaikuntha comes directly in contact with the material creation. They are completely aloof from the material energy. It is the function of Mahasankarshan in the form of Karnodakshai Vishnu to glance over material creation which is situated beyond the limits of the causal ocean. Material nature is connected with the personality of Godhead by his glance over her and nothing more. It is said that she is impregnated by the energy of his glance. The material energy, Maya, never even touches the causal ocean. For the Lord's glance focuses upon her from a great distance away. The glancing power of the Lord agitates the entire cosmic energy, and thus its actions begin at once. This indicates that matter, however powerful she may be, has no power by herself. Her activity begins by the grace of the Lord, and then the entire cosmic creation is manifested in a systematic way. The example of a woman's conception can help us understand this subject to a certain extent. The mother is passive, but the father puts his energy within the mother and thus she conceives. She supplies the ingredients for the birth of the child in her womb. Similarly, the Lord activates material nature, which then supplies the ingredients for cosmic development. Material nature has two different phases. The aspect called pradhana supplies the material ingredients for cosmic development, and the aspect called maya causes the manifestation of her ingredients, which are temporary, like foam in the ocean. In reality, the temporary manifestations of material nature are originally caused by spiritual glance of the Lord. The personality of Godhead is the direct or remote cause of creation, and the material nature is the indirect or the immediate cause. Materialistic scientists, puffed up by the magical chances their so called inventions are brought about, cannot see the real potency of Godhead behind the matter. Therefore, the jugglery of science is gradually leading people to a godless civilization at the cost of goal of human life. Having misled the goal of life, materialists run after self-sufficiency, not knowing that the material nature is already self-sufficient by the grace of God, thus creating a colossal hoax in the name of civilization. They create an imbalance in the natural self-sufficiency of the material nature. To think of material nature as all in all, not knowing the original cause, is ignorance. Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to dissipate this darkness of ignorance by igniting the spark of spiritual life that can, by His causeless mercy, enlighten the entire world. To explain how Maya acts by Krishna's power, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta gives the example of an iron rod in a fire. Although the rod is not fire, it becomes red hot and acts like fire itself. Similarly, all the actions and reactions of material nature are not actually the work of material nature, but are actions and reactions of the energy of the Supreme Lord manifested through matter. The power of electricity is transmitted through the medium of copper. But this does not mean that the copper is electricity. The power is generated at a powerhouse under the control of an expert living being. Similarly, behind all the jugglery of the natural laws is a great living being who is a person like the mechanical engineer in the powerhouse. It is by his intelligence that the entire cosmic creation moves in a systematic way. The modes of nature which directly cause material actions are also originally activated by Narayan. A simple example will explain how this is so. When a potter manufactures a pot from clay, the potter's wheel, his tools, and the clay are the immediate causes of the pot, but the potter is the chief cause. Similarly, Narayan is the chief cause of all material creations, and the material energy supplies the ingredients of matter. Therefore, without Narayan, all other causes are useless, just as the potter's wheel and the tools are useless without the potter himself. Since materialistic scientists ignore the personality of Godhead, it is as if they were concerned with the potter's wheel and its rotation, the potter's tools and ingredients for the pot had no knowledge of the potter himself. Therefore, modern science has created an imperfect godless civilization that is in gross ignorance of ultimate cause. Scientific advancement should have a greater goal to attain, and that great goal should be the personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after conducting research for many, many births, great men of knowledge who stress the importance of experimental thought can know the personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. When one knows him perfectly, one surrenders unto him and then becomes a Mahatma. Text 52, translation. Surrounding Vaikuntha is a mass of water that is endless, unfathomed, and unlimited. Text 53, translation. The earth, water, fire, air, and ether of Vaikuntha are all spiritual. Material elements are not found there. Text 54, translation. The water of the Karana ocean, which is the original cause, is therefore spiritual. The sacred Ganges, which is but a drop of it, purifies the fallen souls. Text 55 translation. In that ocean lies a plenary portion of Lord Sankarshana. Text 56 translation. He is known as the first Purusha, the creator of the total material energy. He, the cause of universes, the first incarnation, casts his glance over Maya. Text 57 translation. Maya Shakti resides outside the Karna ocean. Maya cannot touch its waters. Text 58 translation. Maya has two varieties of existence. One is called Pradhana or Prakriti. It supplies the ingredients of material world. Purport. Maya, the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is divided into two parts. Maya is both the cause of the cosmic manifestation and the agent who supplies its ingredients. As the cause of cosmic manifestation, she is known as Maya, and as the agent supplying the ingredients of the cosmic manifestation, she is known as Pradhana. An explicit description of these divisions of the external energy is given in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.24 1 to 4. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:63-26, the ingredients and the cause of the material cosmic manifestation are described as follows. Kalodaivam karma jiva swabhavo dravyam kshetram prana atma vikarah satsangato bijaroha pravahas tvan maya isha tan nishedam prapadye. O my Lord, time, activity, providence, and nature are four parts of the causal aspect, Maya, of the external energy. The conditioned vital force, the subtle material ingredients called the Dravya, and the material nature, which is the field of activity where the false ego acts as the soul, as well as the 11 senses and 5 elements earth, water, fire, air, and ether, which are 16 ingredients of the body. These are the ingredients as ingredient aspect of Maya. The body is generated from activity, and the activity is generated from the body. Just as a tree is generated from a seed that is generated from a tree. This reciprocal cause and effect is called Maya. My dear Lord, you can save me from this cycle of cause and effect. I worship your lotus feet. Although the living entity is primarily related to the causal portion of Maya, he is nevertheless conducted by the ingredients of Maya. Three forces work in the causal portion of Maya: knowledge, desire, and activity. The material ingredients are a manifestation of Maya as pradhana. In other words, when three qualities of Maya are in dormant stage, they exist as Prakriti, Avyakta, or Pradhana. The word Avyakta, referring to the non manifested, is another name of Pradhana. In the Avyakta stage, material nature is without varieties. Varieties are manifested by the Pradhana portion of Maya. The word Pradhana is therefore more important than Avyakta or Prakriti. Text 59 translation. Because Prakriti is dull and inert, it cannot actually be the cause of material world. But Lord Krishna shows his mercy by infusing his energy into the dull, inert material nature. Text 60 translation. Thus, Prakriti, by the energy of Lord Krishna, becomes the secondary cause, just as iron becomes red hot by the energy of fire. Text 61 translation. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Prakriti is like the nipples on the neck of a goat, for they cannot give milk. The external energy composed of Pradhan or Prakriti as the ingredient supplying portion and Maya as the causal portion is known as Maya Shakti. Inert material nature is not the actual cause of material manifestation, for Karana Karana Arnavashai Mahavishnu, the plenary expansion of Krishna, activates all the ingredients. It is in this way that material nature has the power to supply the ingredients. The example given is that iron has no power to heat or burn. But after coming in contact with fire, the iron becomes red hot and can then diffuse heat and burn other things. Material nature is like iron, for it has no independence to act without the touch of Vishnu, who is compared to fire. Lord Vishnu activates material nature by the power of his glance, and then, like iron like material, and then the iron like material nature becomes a material supplying agent, just as iron made red hot becomes a burning agent. Material nature cannot independently become an agent for supplying the material ingredients. This is more clearly explained by Sri Kapila Dev, an incarnation of Godhead in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.2840. Yatholmukkad Vishpulingat Dhumad Vapi Swasambhavat Api Atmatvena Bhimattad Yatha Agni Prithak Ulmukkad. Although smoke, flaming wood, and sparks are all considered together as ingredients of fire, the flaming wood is nevertheless different from the fire, and the smoke is different from the flaming wood. The material elements, earth, water, fire, etc., are like smoke. The living entities are like sparks, and the material nature as Pradhan is like the flaming wood. But all of them together are recipients of power and from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and are thus able to manifest their individual capacities. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of all manifestations. Material nature can supply only when it is activated by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a woman can deliver a child after being impregnated by the semen of a man, so material nature can supply material elements after being glanced upon by Mahavishnu. Therefore, Pradhana cannot be independent of the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Prakriti, the total material energy, works under the superintendence of the Lord. The original source of material elements is Krishna. Therefore, the attempt of atheistic Sankhya philosophers to consider material nature the source of these elements, forgetting Krishna, is useless. Like trying to get milk from the nipple like bumps of skin hanging from the neck of a goat. Text 62 translation. The Maya aspect of material nature is the immediate cause of the cosmic manifestation, but it cannot be real cause, for the original cause is Lord Narayan. Text 63 translation. Just as the original cause of an earthen pot is the potter, so the creator of the material world is the first Purusha incarnation, Karnavashai Vishnu. Text 64 translation. Lord Krishna, Jai Shri Kishore Kishore Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Text 64 translation. Lord Krishna is the creator and Maya only helps him as an instrument. Just like the potter's wheel and other instruments which are instrumental cause of a pot. The first Purusha casts his glance at Maya from a distance, and thus he impregnates her with the seed of life in the form of living entities. Text 66 translation. The reflected rays of his body mix with Maya, and thus Maya gives birth to myriad universes. Purport. The Vedic conclusion is that the cosmic manifestation visible to the eyes of the conditioned soul is caused by the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, through the exertion of his specific energies. Although in the conclusion of atheistic deliberations, this manifested cosmic exhibition is attributed to material nature. The energy of the absolute truth is exhibited in three ways: spiritual, material, and marginal. The absolute truth is identical with his spiritual energy. Only when contacted by the spiritual energy Can the material energy work and the temporary material manifestation thus appear active? In the conditioned state, the living entities of the marginal energy are a mixture of spiritual and material energies. The marginal energy is originally under the control of the spiritual energy, but under the control of material energy, the living entities have been wandering in forgetfulness within the material world since time immemorial. The conditioned state is caused by misuse of the individual independence of the spiritual platform, for this separates the living entity from the association of the spiritual energy. But when the living entity is enlightened by the grace of the Supreme Lord or his pure devotee and becomes inclined to revive his original state of loving service, he is on the most auspicious platform of eternal bliss and knowledge. The marginal jiva or the living entity misuses his independence and becomes averse to the eternal service attitude when he independently thinks he is not energy but the energetic. This misconception of his own existence leads him to the attitude of lording it over the material nature. Material nature appears to be just the opposite of spiritual energy. The fact is that material energy can work only when in contact with the spiritual energy. Originally, the energy of Krishna is spiritual, but it works in diverse ways, like electrical energy, which can exhibit the functions of refrigerating or heating through its manifestations in different ways. The material energy is spiritual energy covered by a cloud of illusion or maya. Therefore, the material energy is not self sufficient in working. Krishna invests his spiritual energy into the material energy, and then it can act, just as iron can act like fire after being heated by fire. The material energy can act only when empowered by the spiritual energy. When covered by the cloud of material energy, the living entity, who is also a spiritual energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forgets about the activities of the spiritual energy and considers all that happens in the material manifestation to be wonderful. But a person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness and who is therefore already situated in the spiritual energy can understand that the material energy has no independent powers. Whatever actions are going on are due to the help of the spiritual energy. The material energy, which is a perverted form of the spiritual energy, presents everything pervertedly, thus causing misconceptions and duality. Material scientists and philosophers, conditioned by the spell of material nature, suppose that the material energy acts automatically and therefore they are frustrated, like an illusion person who tries to get milk from the nipple like bunches of skin on the neck of a goat. As there is no possibility of getting milk from these bunches of skin, there is similarly no possibility that anyone will be successful in understanding the original cause of creation by putting forward theories produced by the material energy. Such an attempt is a manifestation of ignorance. The material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Maya or illusion because in two capacities by supplying the material elements and by causing the material manifestation. It makes conditioned soul unable to understand the real truth of creation. However, when a living entity is liberated from the conditioned life of matter, he can understand the two different activities of material nature, namely covering and bewildering. The origin of creation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the cosmic manifestation is working under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who invests the material energy with three material qualities. Agitated by these qualities, the elements supplied by the material energy produce varieties of things, just as an artist produces varieties of pictures by mixing the three colors red, yellow, and blue. Yellow represents the quality of goodness, red represents passion, blue represents ignorance. Therefore, the colorful material creation is but an interaction of these three qualities, represented in 81 varieties of mixtures, 3 into 3 equaling 9, 9 into 9 thus equaling 81. Deluded by material energy, the conditioned soul, enamored by these 81 varieties of manifestations, wants to lord it over the material energy, just as a moth wants to enjoy fire. This illusion is the net result of conditioned soul's forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When conditioned, the soul is impelled by the material energy to engage in sense gratification, whereas one enlightened by the spiritual energy engages himself in the service of the Supreme Lord in his eternal relationship. Krishna is the original cause of the spiritual world, and he is covered cause of material manifestation. He is also the original cause of the marginal potency in the living entities. He is both the leader and maintainer of the living entities, who are called marginal potency because they can act under the protection of spiritual energy or under the cover of material energy. With the help of the spiritual energy, we can understand that independence is visible only in Krishna, who, by his inconceivable energy, is able to act in any way he likes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute whole, and the living entities are the parts of the absolute whole. This relationship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities is eternal. One should never mistakenly think that the spiritual whole can be divided into small parts by small material energy. The Bhagavad Gita does not support this Mayavad theory. Rather, it clearly states that the living entities are eternally small fragments of the supreme spiritual whole. As a part can never be equal with the whole, so a living entity as a minute fragment of the spiritual whole cannot be equal at any time to the supreme whole, the absolute personality of Godhead. Although the Supreme Lord and the living entities are qualitatively related as the whole and the parts are nevertheless qualitatively one with the whole. Thus, the living entities, although always qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, are in a relative position. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of everything, and the living entities are always controlled either by the spiritual energy or by the material energy. Therefore, a living entity can never become the controller of material or spiritual energies. The natural position of the living being is always as subordinate of the Supreme Personality of the God of Godhead. When one agrees to act in such a position, he attains perfection in life, but if one rebels against this principle, he is in conditioned state. Text 67 translation. The Purusha enters each and every one of the countless universes. He maintains himself in as many separate forms as there are universes. Text 68 translation. When the Purusha exhales, the universes are manifested with each outward breath. Translation text 69. Thereafter, when he inhales, all universes again enter his body. Purport. In his form as Karmadakshai Vishnu, the Lord impregnates material nature by his glance. The transcendental molecules of that glance are particles of spirit or spiritual atoms, which appear in different species of life according to the seeds of their individual karma from the previous cosmic manifestation. And the Lord Himself, by His partial representation, creates a body of innumerable universes and again enters each of those universes as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. His coming in contact with Maya is explained in Bhagavad Gita by a comparison between air and the sky. The sky enters everything material, yet it is far away from us. Text 70 translation. Just as atomic particles of dust pass through the openings of a window, so the networks of universes pass through the pores of the skin of the Purusha. Text 71 translation. The Brahmanas and other lords of mundane worlds appear from the pores of Mahavishnu and remain alive for duration of his one exhalation. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom Mahavishnu is a portion of plenary portion. But this description of Lord's creative energy is from Brahma Samhita 5.48, which Lord Brahma compiled after his personal realization. When Mahavishnu exhales, the spiritual seeds of the universes emanate from him in the form of molecular particles like those that are visible, 3 times the size of an atom. When sunlight is diffused through a small hole, in these days of atomic research, it will be a worthwhile engagement for atomic scientists to learn from this statement how the entire creation develops from the spiritual atoms emanating from the body of the Lord. Text 72 translation. Where I am, where am I? A small creature of 7 spans, the measure of my own hand. I am enclosed in the universe composed of material nature. The total material energy, false ego, ether, air, water, and earth. And what is your glory? Unlimited universes pass through the pores of your body, just like particles of dust passing through the opening of a window. Perfect. When Lord Brahma, after having stolen all Krishna's calves and cowherd boys, returned and saw that the calves and boys were still roaming with Krishna, he offered this prayer, Bhagavad 10.14.11, in his defeat. A conditioned soul, even one so great as Brahma, who manages the affairs of the entire universe, cannot compare to the personality of Godhead, for he can produce numberless universes simply by the spiritual rays emanating from the pores of his body. Material scientists should take lessons from the utterances of Sri Brahma regarding our insignificance in comparison to God. In these prayers of Brahma, there is much to learn for those who are falsely puffed up by the accumulation of power. Text 73. A part of a whole is called a kala. Sri Balaram is the counter form of Lord Govinda. Translation. Balram's own expansion is called Mahasankarshan, and his fragment, the Purusha, is counted as a kala or a part of plenary portion. Text 75. I say that this kala is Mahavishnu. He is the Mahapurusha, who is the source of all other Purushas, who is all pervading. Text 76 translation. Garbhodakshai and Shirodakshai are both called Purushas. They are plenary portions of Karnodakshai Vishnu, the first Purusha, who is the abode of all universes. The symptoms of Purusha are described in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. While describing the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the author has quoted from the Vishnu Purana 6.8.59, where it is said, Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Purushottama. Lord Krishna, who is always free from contamination of six material dualities, whose plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, glances over matter to create cosmic manifestation, who expands himself in various transcendental forms, all of which are one and the same, who is the master of all living entities, who is always free and liberated from the contamination of material energy, and who, when he appears in this material world, seems one of us, although he has an eternally spiritual, blissful, transcendental form. In summarizing this statement, Rupa Goswami has concluded that the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who acts in cooperation with the material energy, is called the Purusha. Text 77 translation. Vishnu has three forms called Purushas. The first, Mahavishnu, is the creator of the total material energy, Mahat. The second is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, who is situated within each universe. And the third is Shirodakshayi, who lives in the heart of every living being. He who knows these three becomes liberated from the clutches of Maya. Purport. This verse appears in Lagu Bhagavatamrita, where it has been quoted from the Satvata Tantra, text 78 translation. Although Karnadakshayi Vishnu is called a Kala of Lord Krishna, he is the source of Matsya, Kurma, and other incarnations. Text 79 translation. Shh. Mataji, don't make noise. We are reading. Stop, please. Thank you. Thank you. Text 79 translation. All these incarnations of Godhead are either plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions of the Purusha avatars. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. In every age, He protects the world through His different features when the world is disturbed by the enemies of Indra. Purport. This quotation is from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Text 80 translation. That Purusha Karnodakshayi Vishnu is the performer of creation, maintenance, and destruction. He manifests himself in many creations, for he is the maintainer of the world. Text 81 translation. That fragment of the Supreme Lord, known as Mahapurusha, appears for the purpose of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and is called as an incarnation. Text 82 translation. That Mahapurusha is identical with the personality of Godhead. He is the original incarnation, the seed of all others, and the shelter of everything. Text 83 translation. The Purusha, Mahavishnu, is the primary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time, nature, Prakriti as cause and effect, the mind, the material elements, false ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form, complete independence, and the moving and non moving beings appear subsequently as his opulences. Purport. In describing the incarnations and their symptoms, Lagu Bhagavatamrita has stated that when Lord Krishna descends to conduct the creative affairs of material manifestation, he is an avatara or incarnation. The two categories of avatars are empowered devotees and Tad Ekatma Rupa, Lord Himself. An example of Tad Ekatmaka Rupa is Shesha, and an example of a devotee is Vasudev, the father of Lord Krishna. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan has commented that the material cosmic manifestation is a partial kingdom of God where God must sometimes come to execute a specific function. The plenary portion of the Lord, through whom Lord Krishna executes such actions, is called Mahavishnu, who is the primal beginning of all incarnations. Inexperienced observers presume that material energy provides both the cause and the elements of cosmic manifestation, and that living entities are enjoyers of material nature. But the devotees of Bhagavata school, which has scrutinizingly examined the entire situation, can understand that material nature can independently be neither the supplier of material elements nor the cause of the material manifestation. Material nature gets the power to supply the material elements from the glance of the Supreme Purusha, Mahavishnu, and when empowered by him, she is called the cause of the material manifestation. Both features of material nature as the cause of material creation and as the source of its elements exist due to the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The various expansions of the Supreme Lord who act to empower the material energy are known as plenary expansions or incarnations. As illusioned by the example of many flames lit from one flame, all these plenary expansions and incarnations are as good as Vishnu himself. Nevertheless, because of their activities in controlling Maya, sometimes they are known as Maika or having a relationship with Maya. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6.42. Mataji, text 84, translation. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord expanded himself in the form of a Purusha incarnation, accompanied by all ingredients of material creation. First, he created the 16 principal energies suitable for creation. This was the purpose, this was for the purpose of manifesting the material universes. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.1. The commentary of Madhava on Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that the following 16 spiritual energies are present in the spiritual world: Shri, Bhu, Lila, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Gir, Pushti, Satya, Jnananjana, Jaya, Utkarshini, Vimala, Yogamaya, Pravi, Ishana, Anugraha. In his commentary on Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan has said that the above energies are also known by 9 names: Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Pravi, Satya Ishana, Anugraha. In his commentary on Laghu Bhagavatam, Sri Baldev Vidyabhushan has said that the above energies are also known by 9 names: Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Pravi, Satya, Ishana, and Anugraha. In Bhagavata Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami, they are described as Shri, Pushti, Gir, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Leela, Ila, Jaya, Vidya, Avidya, Maya, Samvit, Sandhini, Alladini, Bhakti, Murti, Vimala, Yoga, Pravi, Ishana, Anugraha, etc. All these energies act in different spheres of the Lord's supremacy. Text 85 translation. Although the Lord is the shelter of everything, and although all universes rest in him, he, as the super soul, Prabhu, can you please tell her? Reduce the volume. I told her twice, she's not listening. He, as the super soul, is also the purport of everything, support of everything. Text 86 translation. Although he is connected with material energy in two ways, he does not have the slightest contact with it. In Lagu Bhagavatamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami, commenting upon the Lord's transcendental position beyond the material qualities, says that Vishnu, as the controller and superintendent of material nature, has a connection with material qualities. That connection is called yoga. However, the person who directs a prison is not also a prisoner. Similarly, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu directs or supervises the qualitative nature, he has no connection with the material modes of nature. The expansions of Lord Vishnu always retain that supremacy. They are never connected with the material qualities. One may argue that Mahavishnu cannot have any connection with the material qualities because if he were so connected, Srimad Bhagavatam would not state that material nature, ashamed of her thankless task of acting to induce the living entities to become averse to the Supreme Lord, remains behind the Lord in shyness. In answer to this argument, it may be said that the word guna, means regulation. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva are situated within this universe as the directors of the three modes, and their connection with the modes is known as yoga. This does not indicate, however, that these personalities are bound by the qualities of nature. Lord Vishnu specifically is always the controller of three qualities. There is no question of his coming under their control. Although the causal and element supplying features exist in material nature by dint of glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is never affected by glancing over the material qualities. By the will of the Supreme Lord, the different qualitative changes in the material world take place, but there is no possibility of material affection, change, or contamination for Lord Vishnu. हो गया है सॉल्व बहुत जोर जोर से म्यूजिक लगा है हाँ, हो गई उत्तम श्लोक प्रभु का बोल Translation. This is the opulence of the Lord. Although situated within the material nature, he is never affected by the modes of nature. Similarly, those who have surrendered to him and have fixed their intelligence upon him are not influenced by the modes of nature. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.11.38, text 88 translation. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita also states again and again that the absolute truth always possesses inconceivable power. Text 89 translation. Lord Krishna said, I am situated in the material world and the world rests in me. But at the same time, I am not situated in the material world, nor does it rest in me in truth. Purport. Nothing in existence is possible unless energized by the will of the Lord. The entire manifested creation is therefore resting on the energy of the Lord. But one should not therefore presume that the material manifestation is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A cloud may rest in the sky, but that does not mean that the sky and the cloud are one and the same. Similarly, the qualitative material nature and its products are never identical with the Supreme Lord. The tendency to lord it over material nature or Maya cannot be a feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he descends to the material world, he maintains his transcendental nature, unaffected by material qualities. In both spiritual and material worlds, he is always the controller of all energies. The uncontaminated spiritual nature always exists within him. The Lord appears and disappears in the material world in different features for his pastimes, yet he is the origin of all cosmic manifestations. The material manifestation cannot exist separate from the Supreme Lord, yet Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in spite of his connection with the material nature, cannot be subordinate to nature's influence. His original form of eternal bliss and knowledge is never subordinate to the three qualities of material nature. This is a specific feature of the Supreme Lord's inconceivable potencies. Text 90 translation. Arjuna, O Arjuna, you should know this as my inconceivable opulence. This is the meaning propagated by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. That Mahapurusha, Karnodakshai Vishnu, is known as a plenary part of him, who is Lord Nityananda Balarama, the favorite associate of Lord Chaitanya. Translation. Text 92. I have thus explained the ninth verse, and now I shall explain the 10th. Please listen with rapt attention. Text 93 translation. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, a partial part of whom is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. From the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu sprouts the lotus that is the birthplace of Brahma, the engineer of the universe. The stem of that lotus is the resting place of the multitude of planets. Purport. In Mahabharata Shanti Parva, it is said that he who is Pradyumna is also Aniruddha. He is also the father of Brahma. Thus, Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Shirodakshai Vishnu are identical plenary expansions of Pradyumna, the original deity of Brahma, who is born from the lotus flower. It is Pradyumna who gives Brahma direction for cosmic management. A full description of Brahma's birth is given in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.8.15-16. Describing the features of the three Purushas, the Laghu Bhagavatamrita says that Garbhodakshai Vishnu has a four-handed form, and when he himself enters the hollow of the universe and lies down in the ocean of milk, he is known as Shirodakshai Vishnu, who is the super soul of all living entities, including the demigods. In the Satvata Tantra, it is said that the third Purusha incarnation, Shirodakshai Vishnu, is situated as the super soul in everyone's heart. This Shirodakshai Vishnu is an expansion of Garbhodakshai Vishnu for pastimes. Text 94 translation. After creating millions of universes, the first Purusha entered into each of them in a separate form as Shirodakshai. Text 95 translation. Entering the universe, he found only darkness with no place in which to reside. Thus he began to consider. Text 96 translation. Then he created water from the perspiration of his own body, and with that water filled half the universe. Text 97 translation. The universe measures 500 million yojanas. Its length and breadth are one and the same. Text 98 translation. After filling half the universe with water, he made his own residence therein and manifested the 14 worlds in other half. Purport. The 14 worlds are enumerated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 5th chapter. The upper planetary systems are Bhu, Bhuvar, Swar, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, and Satya. The 7 lower planetary systems are Tala, Atala, Vitala, Nitala, Talatal, Mahatal, Sutal. The lower planets as a whole are called Patal. Among the upper planetary systems, Bhu, Bhuvar, and Swar constitute Swargaloka, and the rest are called Martya. The entire universe is known as Triloka. Text 99 translation. There he manifested Vaikuntha as his own abode and rested in the waters on the bed of Lord Shesha. Text 100 to 101 translation. He lay there with Ananta as his bed. Lord Ananta is a divine serpent having thousands of heads, thousands of faces, thousands of eyes, thousands of hands and feet. He is the seed of all incarnations and is the cause of the material world. Perfect. In the reservoir of water first created by the perspiration of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the Lord lies on the Shesha planary expansion of Vishnu, who is described in Srimad Bhagavatam and in the four Vedas as follows. Sahasra Shirisha Purusha Sahasra Sahasrapat Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumin Vishwato Ritva Dashanangulam. The Vishnu form called Ananta Shesha, Jai Shri Krishna. Ananta Shayana has thousands of hands and legs and thousands of eyes. He is the active generator of all incarnations within the material world. Text 102. Translation. From his navel grew a lotus flower which became the birthplace of Lord Brahma. Text 103. Translation. Within the stem of that lotus were 14 worlds. Thus the Supreme Lord as Brahma created the entire creation. Text 104 translation. And as Lord Vishnu, he maintains the entire world. Lord Vishnu being beyond all material attributes, but has no touch with the material qualities. Sri Baldev Vidyabhushan says that although Vishnu is the predominating deity of quality of goodness in the material world, he is never affected by the quality of goodness, for he directs that quality simply by his supreme will. It is said that all living entities can derive all good fortune from the Lord simply by his will. In the Vamana Purana, it is said that the same Vishnu expands himself as Brahma and Shiva to direct the different qualities. Because Lord Vishnu expands the quality of goodness, he has the name Sattva Tanu. The multifarious incarnations of Shirodaksha Vishnu are known as Sattvatanu. Therefore, in all Vedic scriptures, Vishnu has been described as being free from all material qualities. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Hari Rihi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakrite Para Sa Sarva Drig Upadrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavet. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is always uncontaminated by the modes of material nature, for he is beyond the material manifestation. He is the source of the knowledge of all demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, and he is the witness of everything. Therefore, one who worships the Supreme Lord Vishnu also attains freedom from contamination of material nature. Bhagavad 10:88.5. One can attain freedom from contamination of material nature by worshipping Vishnu, and therefore he is called Sattva as described above. Text 105 translation. Assuming the form of Rudra, he destroys the creation. Thus, creation, maintenance, dissolution are created by his will. Purport. Maheshwara or Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living being, nor is he equal to Lord Vishnu. Effectively comparing Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, the Brahma Samhita says that Vishnu is like milk, whereas Shiva is like yogurt. Yogurt is nothing like milk, but nevertheless it is milk also. Text 106 translation. He is the super soul, Hiranyagarbha, the cause of the material world. The universal form is conceived as his expansion. Text 107 translation. That Lord Narayan is a part of plenary part of Lord Nityananda Balarama, who is the source of all incarnations. Text 108 translation. I have thus explained the 10th verse. Now please listen to the meaning of the 11th verse in with all your mind. Text 109 translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose secondary part is Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk. That Shirodakshai Vishnu is the supersoul of all living entities and the maintainer of all universes. Sheshanaga is his further subpart. Text 110 translation. The material planets rest within the stem that grows from the lotus navel of Lord Narayan. Among these planets are 7 oceans. Text 111 translation. There in part of the ocean of milk lies Shvetadvipa, the abode of sustainer, Lord Vishnu. The Siddhartha Shiromani and astrological text, the different oceans are described as follows: the ocean of salt water, the ocean of milk, the ocean of yogurt, the ocean of clarified butter, the ocean of sugarcane juice, the ocean of liquor, the ocean of sweet water. On the southern side of the ocean of salt water is the ocean of milk, where Lord Shirodakshai Vishnu resides. He is worshipped there by the demigods like Brahma. Text 112 translation. Is the supersoul of all living entities. He maintains this material world and he is its Lord. Purport. The Laghu Bhagavatamrita Purva gives the following description of Vishnu Loka within this universe. Quoted from the Vishnu Dharmottara, above Rudra Loka, the planet of Lord Shiva is the planet called Vishnu Loka. 400,000 miles in circumference, which is inaccessible to any mortal living being. And above that, Vishnu Loka and east of Sumeru Hill is a golden island called Mahavishnu Loka in the ocean of salt water. Lord Brahma and other demigods sometimes go there to meet Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu lies there with the goddess of fortune, and it is said that during the 4 months of the rainy season, he enjoys sleeping on that Sheshanaga bed. East of Sumeru is the ocean of milk, in which there is a white city on the white island where the Lord can be seen sitting with his consort Lakshmi Ji on a throne of Shesha. That feature of Vishnu also enjoys sleeping during the 4 months of rainy season. The Shvetadvipa in the Milk Ocean is situated just south of the ocean of salt water. It is calculated that the area of Shvetadvip is 200,000 square miles. This transcendently beautiful island is decorated with desired trees to please Lord Vishnu and his consort. There are references to Shvetadvip in Brahmanda Purana, Vishnu Purana, Mahabharata, and Padma Purana, and there is the following reference in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:15-18. Shvetadvipa patau chittam shuddhe dharma mayi dharayan chvetatam yati sad urmi rahito nara. My dear Uddhava, you may know that my transcendental form of Vishnu in Shvetadvipa is identical with me in divinity. Anyone who places this Lord of Shvetadvipa within his heart can surpass the pangs of 6 material tribulations: hunger, thirst, birth, death, lamentation, and illusion. Thus, one can attain his original transcendental form. Text 113 translation. In the ages and millenniums of Manu, he appears as different incarnations to establish the principles of real religion and vanquish the principles of irreligion. Purport. Lord Vishnu, who lies in the ocean of milk, incarnates himself in various forms to maintain the laws of cosmos and annihilate the causes of disturbance. Such incarnations are visible in every Manvantara, that is, in course of reign of each Manu, who lives for 71 into 4,320,000 years. 14 such Manus take birth and die to yield a place for the next during one day of Brahma. Text 114 translation. Unable to see him, the demigods go to the shore of the ocean of milk and offer prayers to him. Purport. The denizens of heaven who live in the plenary systems beginning from Swarloka cannot even see Lord Vishnu in Shvetadvipa. Unable to reach the island, they can simply approach the beach of the milk ocean to offer transcendental prayers to the Lord, appealing to him on special occasions to appear as an incarnation. Translation. Text 115. He then descends to maintain the material world. His unlimited opulences cannot be counted. Text 116 translation. That Lord Vishnu is but a part of plenary portion of Lord Nityananda, who is the source of all incarnations. Purport. The Lord of Shvetadvipa has immense potency for creation and destruction. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, being Baladeva himself, the original form of Sankarshana, is the original form of Lord of Shvetadvipa. Text 117 translation. That same Lord Vishnu, in the form of Lord Shesha, holds the planets upon his heads, although he does not know where they are, for he cannot feel their existence upon his heads. Text 118 translation. His thousands of extended hoods are adorned with dazzling jewels surpassing the sun. Text 119 translation. The universe, which measures 500 million yojanas in diameter, rests on one of his hoods like a mustard seed. Perfect. The Lord of Shvetadvipa expands himself as Sheshanak, who sustains all the planets upon his innumerable hoods. These huge global spheres are compared to grains of mustard resting on the spiritual hoods of Sheshanag. The scientist's law of gravity is a partial expansion of Lord Shankarshana's energy. The name Sankarshan has an epistemological relationship to the idea of gravity. There is a reference to Sheshanag in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:17-21, where it is said, Yam ahur asya स्थिति जन्म संयमन त्रिभिर्विहीनम यम अनंतम ऋषया न वेद सिद्धार्थम एव क्वचित स्थितम भूमंडलम मूर्ध सहस्र धामासु. O my Lord, the hymn of the Vedas proclaim that you are the effective cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction. In fact, you are transcendental to all limitations and therefore known as unlimited. On your thousands of hoods rest the innumerable global spheres like the grains of mustard, so insignificant that you have no perception of their weight. The Bhagavatam further says 5:25-2. Yasyedam kshiti mandalam bhagavato ananta murte sahasra shirsha Driyamanam Siddhartha Iva Lakshate. Lord Anantadeva has thousands of hoods. Each sustains a global sphere that appears like a grain of mustard. Text 120 translation. 5. That Ananta Shesha is the devotee incarnation of Godhead. He knows nothing but service to Lord Krishna. Perfect. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Krishna Sandarbha has described Sheshanag as follows. Sri Anantadev has thousands of faces and is fully independent. He is always ready to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He waits upon him constantly. Sankarshan is the first expansion of Vasudev, and because he appears by his own will, he is called Swarat, fully independent. He is therefore infinite and transcendental to all limits of time and space. He himself appears as the thousand-headed Shesha in the Skanda Purana. In Ayodhya Mahatmya chapter, the demigod Indra requested Lord Shesha, who was standing before him as Lakshmana, please go to your eternal abode, Vishnu Loka, where your expansion, Shesha, with his serpentine hoods, is also present. Thus, after dispatching Lakshmana to the regions of Patala, Lord Indra returned to his abode. This quotation indicates that the Sankarshana of the quadruple form descends with Lord Rama as Lakshmana. When Lord Ram disappears, Shesha again separates himself from the personality of Lakshmana. Shesha then returns to his own abode in the Patala regions, and Lakshmana returns to his own abode in Vaikuntha. The Laghu Bhagavatamrita gives the following description. The Sankarshana of the second group of quadruple forms appears as Rama, taking with him Shesha, who bears the global spears. There are two features of Shesha. One is the bearer of the globes, and the other is the bedstead servitor. The Shesha who bears the globes is a potent incarnation of Sankarshan, and therefore he is sometimes called Sankarshana. The bedstead feature of Shesha always presents himself as an eternal servitor of the Lord. Text 121 translation. With his thousands of mouths, he sings the glories of Lord Krishna. But although he always sings in that way, he does not find an end to the qualities of the Lord. Text 102 translation. The four Kumaras hear Srimad Bhagavatam from his lips, and they in turn repeat it in the transcendental bliss of love of Godhead. Text 123 translation. He serves Lord Krishna, assuming all the following forms: umbrellas, slippers, bedding, pillow, garments, resting, chair, residence, sacred thread, and throne. Text 124 translation. He is thus called Lord Shesha, for he has attained the ultimate end of servitude to Krishna. He takes many forms for the service of Krishna, and thus he serves the Lord. Text 125 translation. That person of whom Lord Ananta is a Kala, or part of the plenary part, is Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who therefore can know the pastimes of Lord Nityananda. Text 126 translation. From these conclusions, we can know the limit of the truth of Lord Nityananda. But what glory is there in calling him Ananta? Text 127 translation. But I accept it as the truth because it has been said by devotees. Since he is the source of all incarnations, everything is possible in him. Text 128. They know that there is no difference between the incarnation and the source of all incarnations. Previously, Lord Krishna was regarded in the light of different principles by different people. Text 129. Some said that Krishna was directly Lord Naranarayan, and some called him Lord Vamanadev incarnate. Text 130. Some called Lord Krishna an incarnation to Lord Shirodakshai. All these names are true, nothing is impossible. Text 131. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna appears, he is the shelter of all plenary parts. Thus, at that time, all his plenary portions join in him. Text 132, translation. In whatever form one knows the Lord, one speaks of him in that way. In this, there is no falsity, since everything is possible in Krishna. Perfect. In this connection, we may mention an incident that took place between two of our sannyasis while we were preaching the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in Hyderabad. One of them stated that Hare Krishna refers to Sri Balaram, and the other protested that Hare Rama means Lord Rama. Ultimately, the controversy came to me, and I gave the decision that if someone says that the Rama in Hare Ram is Lord Ramchandra, and someone else says that the Rama in Hare Rama is Sri Balram, both are correct because there is no difference between Sri Balram and Lord Ram. Here in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, we find that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has stated the same conclusion. यही यही रूपे जने से ताहा कहे सकल संभवे कृष्ण किछु मिथ्य नहे. If someone calls Lord Ramachandra by the vibration Hare Krishna, understanding it to mean, O Lord Ramchandra, he is quite right. Similarly, if one says that Hare Ram means O Sri Balaram, he is also right. Those who are aware of Vishnu Tattva do not fight over all these details. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami has explained Krishna's being both Shirodakshayi Vishnu and Narayan in the spiritual sky and expanding in the quadruple forms known as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He has refuted the idea that Krishna is an incarnation of Narayan. Some devotees think that Narayan is the original personality of Godhead and that Krishna is an incarnation. Even Shankaracharya, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, has accepted Narayan as the transcendental personality of Godhead who appeared as Krishna, the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. Therefore, this matter may be difficult to understand. But the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, headed by Rupa Goswami, has established the principle of Bhagavad Gita that everything emanates from Krishna, who says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, I am the original source of everything. Everything includes Narayan. Therefore, Rupa Goswami in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita has established that Krishna, not Narayan, is the original personality of Godhead. In this connection, he has quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.2.15 that states, Swashanta Rupeshwa Itare Swaruper Abhyar ध्यामानेषु अनुकम्पितात्मा पित आत्मा पर आवरेशो महद अंशयुक्तो हि अजो अपि जतो भगवान यथा अग्नि. When pure devotees of the Lord, like Vasudeva, are greatly disturbed by dangerous demons like Kamsa, Lord Krishna joins with all his pastime expansions, such as the Lord of Vaikuntha, and although unborn, becomes manifest, just as fire becomes manifest by the friction of Arni wood. Arni wood is used to ignite a sacrificial fire without matches or any other flame. Just as fire appears from Arni wood, the Supreme Lord appears when there is friction between devotees and non devotees. When Krishna appears, he appears in full, including within himself all his expansions, such as Narayan, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. Krishna is always integrated with his other incarnations like Narsimha, Varaha, Vamana, Naranarayan, Hayagriva, and Ajita. In Vrindavan, Lord Krishna sometimes exhibits the functions of such incarnations. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said, the same personality of Godhead, who is known in Vaikuntha as four-handed Narayan, the friend of all living entities, and in the milk ocean as the Lord of Shvetadvipa, and who is the best of all Purushas, appeared as the son of Nanda. In the fire, there are many sparks of different dimensions. Some of them are very big and some are small. The small sparks are compared to the living entities, and the large sparks are compared to the Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. All the incarnations emanate from Krishna, and after the end of their pastimes, they again merge with Krishna. Therefore, in various Puranas, Krishna is described sometimes as Narayan, sometimes as Shirodakshayi Vishnu, sometimes as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and sometimes as Vaikuntha Natha, the Lord of Vaikuntha. Because Krishna is always full, Mula Sankarshan is in Krishna. And since all incarnations are manifested from Mula Sankarshan, it should be understood that he can manifest different incarnations by his supreme will, even in the presence of Krishna. Great sages have therefore glorified the Lord by different names. Thus, when the original person, the source of all incarnations, is sometimes described as an incarnation, there is no discrepancy. Text 133. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has exhibited to everyone all the pastimes of various incarnations. Text 134 translation. Thus, Lord Nityananda has unlimited incarnations. In transcendental emotion, he calls himself a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Text 137 translation. Sometimes he serves Lord Chaitanya as his guru, sometimes as his friend, sometimes as his servant, sometimes as Lord Balram, played with Lord Krishna in these different moods in Braja. Text 136 translation. Playing like a bull, Lord Balaram fights with Krishna head to head. Sometimes Lord Krishna massages the feet of Lord Balram. Text 137 translation. He considers himself a servant and knows Krishna to be his master. Thus he regards himself as a fragment of his plenary portion. Text 138. Acting just like ordinary boys, they played like roaring bulls as they fought each other, and they imitated the calls of various animals. Purport. This and a following quotation from Bhagavatam 10:11:40 and 10:15:14. Text 139 translation. Sometimes when Lord Krishna's elder brother, Lord Balram, felt tired and after playing and lay his head on the lap of the coward boy, Lord Krishna himself served him by massaging his feet. Text 140 translation. Who is this mystic power? Where has she come from? Is she a demigod or a demoness? She must be the illusory energy of my master, Lord Krishna, for who else can bewilder me? But the playful pastimes of the Lord caused suspicion in the mind of Lord Brahma, and therefore Brahma, to test Krishna's lordship, stole all the Lord's calves and cowherd boys with his own mystic power. Sri Krishna responded, however, by replacing all the calves and boys in the field. Lord Balaram's thoughts of astonishment at such wonderful retaliation are recorded in this verse. Text 147 translation. What is the value of a throne to Lord Krishna? The masters of various planetary systems accept the dust of his lotus feet on their crowned heads. That dust makes the holy places sacred, and even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi, and I myself, who are all portions of his plenary portion, eternally carry that dust on our heads. When the Kauravas बंद हो गया बैटरी डाउन है when the Kauravas to flatter Baldev so that he would become their ally spoke ill of Sri Krishna, Lord Baldev became angry and spoke this verse Bhagavatam 10:68-37. Text 142 translation. Lord Krishna alone is the supreme controller and all others are his servants. They dance as he make them do so. Text 143 translation. Thus, Lord Chaitanya is the only controller. All others are his associates or servants. Text 144, 145. Translation. His elders, such as Lord Nityananda, Advaitacharya, and Srivas Thakur, as well as his other devotees, whether his juniors, equals, or superiors, are all his associates who help him in his pastimes. Lord Garanga fulfills his aim with their help. Text 146 translation. Sri Advaita Acharya and Srila Nityananda Prabhu, who are plenary parts of the Lord, are his principal associates. With these two, the Lord performs his pastimes in various ways. Text 147 translation. Lord Advaita Acharya is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Lord Chaitanya accepts him as his preceptor, Advaita Acharya is a servant of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya always offered respects to Advaita Prabhu as he would to his father because Advaita was even older than his father. Yet Advaita Prabhu always considered himself a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Sri Advaita Prabhu and Ishwar Puri, Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, were both disciples of Madhavendra Puri, who was also the spiritual master of Nityanand Prabhu. Thus, Advaita Prabhu, as Lord Chaitanya's spiritual uncle, was always to be respected because one should respect one's spiritual masters, god brothers, as one respects one's spiritual master. Because of all these considerations, Sri Advaita Prabhu was superior to Lord Chaitanya, yet Advaita Prabhu considered himself Lord Chaitanya's subordinate. Text 148 translation. I cannot describe the truth of Advaita Acharya. He has delivered the entire world by making Lord Krishna descend. 149. Lord Nityananda Swarup formerly appeared as Lakshmana and served Lord Ramchandra as his younger brother. Purport. Among the sannyasis of Shankara Sampradaya, there are different names for brahmacharis. Each sannyasi has some assistants known as brahmacharis who are called by different names according to the names of the sannyasis. Among such brahmacharis, there are four names Swarupa, Ananda, Prakash, and Chaitanya. Nityanand Prabhu maintained himself as brahmachari. He never took sannyas. As a brahmachari, his name was Nityanand Swarup, and therefore the sannyasi under whom he was living must have been from the tirthas or ashramas of Shankara Sampradaya because one of the names of for the assistant brahmachari of such a sannyasi is Swarup. 150 translation. The activities of Lord Rama were full of suffering, but Lakshmana, of his own accord, tolerated that suffering. 151. As a younger brother, he could not stop Lord Rama from his resolution, and so he remained silent, although unhappy in his mind. Text 152 translation. When Lord Krishna appeared, he, Balram, became his elder brother to serve him to his heart's content, and I make him enjoy all sorts of happiness. Text 153. Translation. Sri Ram and Sri Lakshman, who are plenary portions of Lord Krishna and Lord Balram, respectively, entered into them at the time of Krishna's and Balram's appearance. Purport. With reference to the Vishnu Dharmottara, the Laghu Bhagavatamrita explains that Rama is an incarnation of Vasudev. Lakshmana is an incarnation of Sankarshana. Bharata is an incarnation of Pradyumna and Shatrughna is an incarnation of Aniruddha. The Padma Purana describes that Ramachandra is Narayan and that Lakshmana, Bharat, Shatrughna are respectively Shesha, Chakra and Shankha. The conch shell in the hand of Narayan. In the Rama Gita of the Skanda Purana, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna have been described as triple attendants of Lord Rama. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Rama.